You're listening to the Big Cast, your source for the latest in financial technology. Brought to you weekly by the Best Innovation Group, with your hosts, John Best and Glenn Sarvati.
Welcome to another edition of the Big Cast. My name is Glenn Sarvati on behalf of the Best Innovation Group, where we like to do cool things with financial technology, and we like to talk to interesting people with well-informed perspectives. That is not an opinion, that is an objective fact that these are interesting people with well-informed perspectives, and share the latest with you about the fintech world here every week on the Big Cast. We have a couple such people this week. Taylor Nelms from the Filene Research Institute sharing some really good new research from his organization, segmenting out the various categories and motivations of credit union members and non-members for that matter. And Paul Sheets, who is at Glia, is a company that we've spoken to before, about their new approach to what they used to call contact center as a service. And we'll hear a little bit more about how that is migrating and evolving over time. As always, I'll mention you can find out more about the Best Innovation Group by visiting our website, big-fintech.com. You can also visit us tomorrow when we do our bi-weekly town hall. That takes place, if you're listening to this right when it drops, the next episode of the Town Hall edition of the live Town Hall will be on Wednesday, March 20th, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. If you're a little bit listening a little after that, you can still go to the website and hear a replay of it. Tomorrow's conversation will focus on security, which, for better or worse, continues to be a topic that we can talk about a whole bunch because there's always new developments in the area. John Best has been seeing a lot of new trends and a lot of weird new developments about the way the perpetrators are going after the space. We'll be engaging in an open conversation, sharing best practices and sharing observations of what's going on out there in the space. That town hall is free for everyone to join, but you do need to register in advance. If you go to cutownhall.com, you will find an opportunity to request an invitation. You will also find the links to our past editions. And you can, if you are, as I say, if you are listening to this after March 20th, you should be able to hear a replay of that hour-long session if you so choose. The other big news I wanted to cover quickly before we get into our interviews this week, if you haven't seen already, the European Union has once again followed suit of what they've done before with open banking with their PSD2 regulation, a good 10 years ago now, and then more recently with the GDPR around data privacy. They've beaten everybody else to the punch yet again in terms of going after a regulatory framework for artificial intelligence. The EU AI Act has passed by an overwhelming margin in terms of what they did, and it looks like a pretty good, even-handed approach to things. It will go in effect in May, and with staggered implementation over the course of about 3 years. Again, this AI Act has been in the works. It's not like they just ran into a conference room and banged it out and passed it immediately. It's been in the works in one form or another since 2021, and obviously AI's been evolving extremely quickly since then, too. So it must have been an interesting process. I was about to say I wish I'd been a fly on the wall, but boy, those things get wonky and painful. I'm not so sure I would like to have been a fly on the wall watching that whole sausage-making process, as they call it. A couple of highlights. We'll post a link so you can read a little bit more about this, but I'm sure there's going to be far more on this coming out. Transparency is very key to what they're trying to do, making it clear. For one thing, there's going to be clear labeling required of any deepfakes, which is obviously the most negative way of looking at it, or the most constructive way, AI-generated content. Supposedly, you should know what you're looking at. And John Best and I have discussed this in the past. I think we'll pull up a recent podcast where we talked about this is where a notion of watermarking comes up and a possibility that we can really go back and find a great opportunity for blockchain to provide provenance and clarity of the source of some of this data. Another key point, financial services is not front and center in this. Obviously, AI plays a key role in terms of banking services as well. But the real first priorities are in the areas of healthcare, education, and policing. Interestingly, depending on how you define policing, but and education for that matter. Politics is not mentioned directly. I know election integrity is obviously top of mind for people. But the quote that they mention is that the goal is to safeguard against subliminal, manipulative, or deceptive techniques that impair informed decision-making. The other thing that comes up in a lot of the conversation is everyone acknowledges the real challenge here will be implementation. One, the evolution of the technology so fast that it outruns the regulation, and the other is flat out, can you get the bad guys to comply? Or is it only the good guys who really weren't doing the bad stuff complying in the first place? One interesting point, going back to the transparency, any open source models that clearly expose all of their algorithms and methods and processes behind the scenes are for the most part exempted. So from that standpoint, you can say, okay, any kind of a tool that the bad guys could have access to, maybe you get to the point where you can actually go back and interrogate and audit what's going on. And then the folks who are, complying, hopefully the ones that have the proprietary models that will take care of it. Time will tell. We'll see. Lots more to come on that one. So let's continue from there. But first, a man who's I've never thought was engaging in any manipulative or deceptive techniques in his research. Always enjoy the stuff that Taylor Nelms brings to the table from the Filene Research Institute. He was on the main stage on the third day of the Government Affairs Conference, where we caught up with him with a first preview of some really interesting stuff that they're looking at, trying to really document what makes a credit union member tick and where they do and don't differ from the greater population. So with no further ado, let's have a listen to my talk with Taylor Nelms. I'm here with Taylor Nelms, the Senior Director of Market Insights and Advisory Services for the Filene Research Institute. Taylor, you gave a great presentation on the third day, or the Wednesday, and I'm not going to bother trying to count which day is which at this point, at the Government Affairs Conference last week, about some of the latest research that you've done in your shop in terms of really working on the member insights around the credit unions. I thought it'd be great to follow up, so thanks for taking the time.
Glenn, thank you so much for having me. And it was a real pleasure to present this new research from Filene at GAC on the big stage.
So, one of the things we kind of started off with is saying that, member-focused strategy feels like kind of the gospel at this point, but it's not always quite that easy. So you kind of have to figure out a way to put that in practice, right?
That's exactly right. We know from previous research that has come out of our centers of excellence and our academic partnerships at Filene that credit unions with these member-focused strategies, credit unions that know who they want to serve best, they perform better and grow faster. They have higher rates of asset growth. They're more well capitalized, higher ROAs. But as you're saying, it's not always easy to take a member-focused strategy and actually implement it, to put it into practice. So the way most credit unions are pursuing this is through data. Credit unions have a massive amount of data about their members, and you can leverage that data to personalize products and experiences, service delivery, marketing and messaging. But to do that well requires credit unions to build new capabilities in terms of their technology, new capabilities in terms of their market research, their ability to actually access those insights, and new business capabilities that allow them to translate insights and data into actionable strategies.
One of the things I jotted down from your notes, and I think you're kind of pointing to this now, is big data is only useful if it's usable. We got tons of data, but you got to actually harness it and create the actionable insights, as I like to say.
Absolutely.
Something.
Yeah, we've worked with an academic at Michigan State University, Dr. Sherry Spire-Pero, who led our Center of Excellence for Data Analytics. And Sherry likes to talk about data analytics readiness. It's not just enough. It's not enough. It's not enough to just have the data warehouse in place, to have the technical infrastructure built. You got to have the right people, the right skills, the right organizational design and processes to be able to actually adopt and use that new technology. So where credit unions are at today, many of them have made major investments in aggregating, storing, analyzing their data. And at this point, I think many credit unions are focused on being able to extract usable insights, as you're saying, and then put those into practice in a way that makes a difference for how they deliver the right products and services to their members.
And maybe taking a step back from there, I think that's what really kind of caught my eye with the data that you presented. One of the key kind of high level takeaways you mentioned is, you found that there's a very strong commonality, or at least not a lot of separation between members and non-members about the way that consumers think about their financial lives. On the other hand, you also pointed out there's a remarkable amount of diversity even within the credit union membership base about how you might need to approach, as you say, like on a member focused basis of what will actually resonate with individual subgroups of members. So that's kind of one of the key points to this recent level of research.
That's exactly right. About 9 months ago, we embarked on this new research endeavor because credit union leaders were telling us over and over again, how can Filene help? Filene can help by helping us understand what credit union members actually need and want out of a relationship with the credit union. So we started with some deep qualitative research with credit union members, not just financial services consumers, but credit union members specifically. And then we ended up surveying almost 5,000 credit union members. We ended up using the data from over 4,700 credit union members from all 50 states, including DC. And we had a comparison group of 1,000 non-credit union members. And you're right. One of the things that we found, perhaps surprising, was that there's not major differences between what a credit union member and what a non-member wants out of a financial services relationship, what they want in terms of financial products and services, how they define financial well-being. Credit union members are pretty representative of the US population as a whole by all sorts of metrics. But the most important thing, I think, is not just that credit union members and non-members are relatively alike in terms of their financial services situation and hopes and dreams and needs and expectations, but within the credit union member population, there's a ton of diversity in terms of people's emotional and psychological connection to their credit union and what they want out of that relationship.
And that's kind of the next level of drill down I saw. You actually managed to kind of break those up into 5 cohorts, archetypes, however you want to really kind of define them. I'm not sure we have to get into specifics of each one, but I thought it was interesting that the 5 are, at least 4 of them are almost equally distributed in terms of the size of the group. There's the 5th that kind of rises to the surface is just a tad smaller. But I mean, when I look at them, they all likely have different strategies and tactics that you would have to, kind of pursue to resonate with that member base.
Yeah, 100%. So we did this deep statistical cluster analysis on our survey data and identified 8 dimensions that really make a difference in terms of shaping people's needs, attitudes, and motivations when it comes to financial services. And it's things like, their affinity for credit unions, their confidence in their financial situation, their trust in financial institutions overall, their desire for expert advice and guidance, or their interest in using new technology solutions. And as you pointed out, we ended up segmenting the credit union member population into these 5 types of credit union member, 5 segments. And they have really different needs, really different ideas about what they want out of financial services. And that makes a difference in terms of how credit unions can reach those members. It makes a difference for their value proposition overall as an institution. It makes a difference for how they design products and then how they deliver those products to these different segments. And it makes a difference in terms of their marketing and messaging, how they talk to members of these different segments. And I'll just give you one example, Glenn, to kind of maybe drive this home with some specificity.
Yeah,
we have 2 different segments. They're quite different. We call one the hopeful help seekers. These are folks who are not super confident in their financial situation, but are very open to guidance and expert advice. They have a high affinity for credit unions. And yeah, what they're really looking for is a partner to support their financial well-being. Compare the hopeful help seekers to the enterprising experts. These are folks who have much higher confidence in their financial situation. Ultimately, they are DIY optimizers. What they want out of a relationship with a financial services provider is the best, most valuable, products and services they can find, and the ability to make their own decisions about how to use those products and services for their needs.
Yeah, the one thing that kind of jumped out at me when I thought about that, and I don't know if the data actually gives you a clear answer on this, are these, 5 groups that are relatively, in the grand scheme of things, relatively similar in size? Do they also tend to be similar in size at each individual credit union, or is there kind of a self-selection process that's already gone on that an individual credit union may be more likely to over-index on 1 or 2 of those just based on their geography or their marketing strategy or whatever? As I said, it may be an unfair question because based on the sample size, you may not know that.
It's a great question. We do know that there is some variation geographically in terms of how these different segments fall out. But I think what's really interesting is each segment has a great deal of demographic diversity in terms of age, in terms of income, in terms of race and ethnicity, in terms of whether somebody, that folks live in urban areas or rural areas. So the way that these different emotional and psychological profiles manifest across the life cycle, or in terms of different demographics, really varies within each segment as well. But they do still share the same set of needs and attitudes towards money and banking. And so what we're doing right now, Glenn, is exactly answering the question that you posed, which is we're working directly with a group of credit unions, and in fact, looking to work with more to expand our sample to survey their members directly to see how these different segments fall out within an individual's credit union's membership, and then to compare those credit unions to one another. And then what we're going to be doing, which is really exciting, is we're going to be taking member account and transactional data working with those credit unions to analyze relationship trends, product trends, transactional trends in terms of the actual behavior of these different segments as they interact with their credit union.
Any hypotheses going in? I'm just wondering, from an actionable standpoint, do you think is the answer that, should there be a toolkit that every credit union should be ready to serve all of these groups? Or is the idea maybe that each of them decide, okay, this is where our real strengths lie, this is where our primary target market is, and we're going to over-index on these 2 types of potential members, and that's how we grow our base?
I think that's a strategic decision for each credit union to make. I mean, I think one of the things that we have seen is it's sometimes a challenge to, and this is where we started, to implement that member-focused strategy. Why? Well, in part because as credit unions have grown, their memberships have gotten bigger and gotten more diverse. So for some credit unions, it might make sense to specialize in serving one of these segments. For other credit unions, they're going to be represented, they're going to have all of those segments represented in the members they already serve. And we'll need to develop strategies, product strategies and marketing strategies to be able to, meet these members' needs in their different segments in their moments of need. And to do that is going to require, strategic trade-offs in terms of how best to focus.
It comes to mind also just in terms of the field of membership conversation, the earlier common bond versus the community approach. I mean, right off the bat, that kind of potentially changes things. And there's just there are some geographic differences, but that it's meaty stuff. And I mean, we can only do so much justice to it in a little time window here, but you've got a webinar coming up that's going to get into a bit more detail on this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We will be sharing the major research findings from this new research project, as well as outlining opportunities for credit unions to be able to use member voice themselves to better understand their memberships, coming up in a webinar on April 4th at 11 a.m. Central Time. Folks can register on the Filene website now. We'll put that information in the show notes. And we invite folks to join us to learn more and to reach out to get engaged and hopefully be able to leverage this inside their shops.
And that is free for everyone to join, right? The
webinar is open for everyone,
and that just requires registration in advance. Yeah, so we will absolutely post that information. One more thing I just noticed at the early part that kind of threw me for a loop. And I don't know if it's the same study or something from earlier that you found that Starting in 2018, the lines kind of crossed, and credit union satisfaction is really fallen behind some of the bank satisfaction metrics you've seen.
That's correct. This is data that comes from the big American Customer Satisfaction Index, their finance study, which they do every year, and survey consumer satisfaction with a whole range of financial institutions. And we have seen since 2018 credit union satisfaction among their members versus bank customer satisfaction. Credit unions have fallen behind for now 4 years running. Credit unions made a big comeback in 2023. That the gap was actually widening between 2018 and 2022. It narrowed in 2023, and I think some of what we've seen in the commercial banking sector is probably behind that, increasing kind of trust in credit unions. But it is really telling that credit unions that have made service and experience and relationship banking part of their value proposition, their differentiator in consumer finance, have really struggled to keep up with banks on that differentiator over the past 4 years.
Wow, that's like I say, surprising, and also I think a great call to action on which to finish this conversation.
Absolutely, it's our goal to close that gap and put credit unions back in front.
Great. Taylor Nelms, the Senior Director for Market Insights and Advisory Services at the Filene Research Institute. Taylor, always a pleasure to talk to you. Great to see you out in DC, and I'll be joining that webinar on the 4th.
Glenn, thank you so much for having me, and really excited about the future of credit unions and the future of Filene.
And we'll post a link to that April 4th upcoming webinar. The Filene Research Institute will be sharing some more detail on this one. The logic here, I think, sounds great, and I think from what I've seen of it, the data and the robustness with which they've gone after, the size of the samples and whatnot, sure sounds good. So I think this should be always the key. Data's great, but it's a lot better when you can act on it. And it looks to me like this stuff has some pretty good opportunity for us to do some good, valuable follow-ups. Let's get right back to the next interview. We've spoken with Glia a few times before. They've been a regular on the Finovate stage and been a repeat winner, as you'll hear. So whenever they've got something new going on, it definitely catches my attention. So they've taken a new approach to what they're referring to as unified interaction management. And rather than me try to explain that one, let's go right to my conversation. Also at the Government Affairs Conference a couple weeks ago with Paul Sheets. I'm here with Paul Sheets, the EVP of Customer Success of Glia, Glia, I've spoken to your colleagues 2 or 3 times already. I know you've won, I believe, 7 times Best of Show at Finovate, right. And I know I've been involved in that a couple times. Thanks so much for taking the time. I know it's the end of another crazy day here at the Government Affairs Conference, and I know you've been running around like crazy too. But you've got some interesting new news that has just popped up.
Yeah, we do. And first, thank you for having this conversation. I'm always energized when I have the chance to talk a little bit about what Glia is doing.
I'll just remind people, I'm looking at the banner behind us right now, Digital First Member Conversations, to kind of put it, succinctly.
Yeah.
And you basically are looking to digitize the ongoing, member interaction in the smartest way possible.
Right? Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, many people in the credit union space know us as the company that wrote the book on digital customer service.
Literally.
There's literally a book,
and I've spoken
right?
to Rick DeLisi.
That's
yeah.
right, that's right. And because we knew and saw this trend that engagements and interactions are just moving to digital channels at a rapid pace. And the technology needed to evolve to catch up with it. What I'm really excited about now is that a couple weeks ago, we made a press release where we announced a new category that we're creating called Unified Interaction Management. It is a category that brings together digital interactions, which again is the space where most people know Glia, but also phone, so our CCaaS solution.
CCaaS, Contact Center as a Service.
Yes, thank you. Yep. And our AI and automation solution. So those 3 pillars come together under a common umbrella.
And you already offered all 3 of those?
Okay. We offer all 3 of those, yes. All of them we've got over 300 credit union customers generally, over 130 that are using our AI and automation solution, over 100 that are using our call center solution. So we've got a lot of momentum in all three areas. And what this does is this brings them together so they can be used more strategically to be able to meet members' needs. And let me explain a little bit of what I mean by that. Historically, when organizations have been thinking about how they want to engage with members, they generally organize themselves around channels. Mm-hmm. So there's a phone team, or there may be a digital
Well, it
team.
grew up that way, so you sprout a new one and then you never bother to integrate.
That's exactly right. That is a perfect articulation of it. It was just how things evolved. We're kind of flipping the paradigm a little bit and saying, taking a channel-first approach is an antiquated way of thinking about the member experience. And I'll tell you why. Members have all sorts of different needs. There's this paradigm, right? There are simple needs where there's not really a big decision being made, what are your branch hours?
Yeah.
How
Real
can I get my tax
rudimentary,
statement? Right, just run of the mill.
The kind of stuff you can
to
do
the
with
member at the time.
With a chatbot. I mean, it's a quick query, boom.
Perfect application for AI, right? Understand it, give the response. It's quick, no wait times. Perfectly designed for that. But we can also agree that if a member comes in with the question of, I need a mortgage, or I need an auto loan, or I'd like to buy a CD. That is a dramatically different interaction type because A, it's a little bit more complex, but B, there's also a decision to be made. And there are certain channels that are suited better. So you already called out how AI is probably better suited for the what are your branch hours. Well, those latter examples that I gave, those are much better suited for a higher touch type of interaction, right? Those are the kind that you would want to route to a mortgage specialist or an account opening specialist or whatever it may be. So Glia's approach is the member will reach out, leveraging whatever channel is most convenient.
Let them choose.
Let them choose. Their point of entry doesn't matter so much, as does the ability to get them to the interaction type that best addresses their question.
Okay.
So if a member's reaching out wanting to compare credit cards, which credit card is best for me? Wouldn't it be a great interaction to be able to have a co-browse experience where you have audio and you are walking them through the different options, scrolling on the page with them in kind of co-pilot mode, and helping them just understand the benefits of each? It increases the likelihood of conversion. Mm-hmm. The member feels well taken care of, and their loyalty in that credit union and their ability to continue to bank with that credit union has just increased. And
the handoffs probably drop as well. I mean, you don't have to you don't get one person on the phone going, oh, that's really Joe's responsibility.
Yes.
Can go on hold and I'll find him.
Yeah, and then Joe gets to answer all the questions.
Starts over.
Yeah, starts
Repeat
over
everything.
again. Yeah, that goes away with Glia. And that's part of the benefit of the channel-less approach that you get within the unified interaction management platform.
And I think you mentioned that it's also consolidating the data, so you don't have siloed data. It's all sitting in one.
That is exactly right. Yeah. So when you're planning, when you're looking at performance, it's all together in one place.
And I mean, I'm kind of thinking of it because I'm a payments guy. I mean, kind of a payments hub. And there's there's different types of payments that make sense for different use cases. And I think what we were just talking about before we started recording. You're not saying that the phone is no longer, it's not antiquated, it's not going away, it's just one option.
It's just one option. And it's a great option for some needs. So I liked your analog with the payments. That's a good Yeah, it was a good point.
So you're rolling this out. I mean, you're selling this. It's again unified interaction management. Do I have
Yes,
that right?
you
Okay.
got it. UIM, Unified Interaction Management.
And you're selling that out into the market.
We are selling it today.
But you're also bringing together your existing customers who have the 3 different offerings, and you're consolidating them or integrating them.
That's right. We are bringing those models. We have brought those models together so that they can have the benefits of unified interaction management.
And what's the best way for people, whether they're already Glia customers or somebody who's looking into this, what's the best way to find out more? The website's got a page specifically on this?
The website is a great starting point to learn. We are also out and about at a lot of conferences and shows. I would encourage anyone to go and stop by and see Glia's technology. I didn't tell you about my background.
Oh, yeah, please.
I actually spent about 5 years running a global contact center.
Oh, okay.
And
in financial services or in what field?
In experience management.
Okay.
But in SaaS.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I found when I found Glia and I began talking to them, and they showed me the technology, and my jaw dropped. Because the thing that came to mind was I had to buy like 5 different point solutions to do what Glia was able to do in a single solution. And it was doing it more elegantly with better data, better transitions. And so I encourage people to go see a demo. Go to the website and request a demo, because you will see something that no one else is offering, being done in a way that no one else is doing it.
Well, obviously it resonates given that you've won Best of Show 7 times.
Yeah, we're doing something right.
And we can point to those 7-minute videos as well, but I guess that you haven't done one on UIM yet because they haven't had...
Because it's hot off the presses.
Right,
we announced
exactly.
it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago,
So the website's a good place to go, but like you say, if people want to see you, out there live and in action...
We're at a couple of events with some of our online banking partners, and so I believe there's a Q2 and Alchemy conferences coming up that we'll be at,
and
as well as
Financial Baron Forum.
We'll be there as well. Yeah,
wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'll post all those links if people want to find out more, and I'm sure I'll be seeing more. And like I say, you guys, everything you've done before is certainly resonated, so I'm sure this is going to do the same. Paul Sheets, Executive Vice President of Customer Success at Glia. Thanks for taking the time.
Hey, thank you.
And so, as I said, that was more of what we saw at the Government Affairs Conference over the course of the last, when did that take place? 2 weeks ago at this point. Interesting point that I just noticed, the American Bankers Association is in town this week in Washington, D.C., doing some of their own advocacy work. It'll be interesting to see where they kind of put their chips on the table. There was, I had never noticed it before, but there was some trolling going on during GAC with bus shelter advertising and things like that as I was walking over, basically trying to needle the credit union difference and really pushing back on tax status again. I'm told that that's an annual event that the American Bankers Association always decides to kind of do a little, poke with a stick with those things. First time I've seen it for whatever reason. But it seems this year, between the credit card late fees, the Interchange Act, there's a lot of bigger fish to fry. And I'm hoping that that's what we're going to discover the time is spent on. And as I have said many times before, there's a whole lot more that unites than divides us on this. And I hope we can focus on that, which kind of gets us back to the kind of full circle to that conversation with Taylor Gnomes. There's a whole lot more in common between credit union members and non-members. So I think there's plenty to go around and plenty of opportunities to help communities across the board. With that, another episode of the Big Cast in the books. Again, my name is Glenn Sarvati. You can find me via my firm, 154 Advisors. You can find the Best Innovation Group at big-fintech.com. Our grand poobah, John Best, at JB Fintech. You'll find us both on LinkedIn. You'll still find us on X, posting occasionally, and also now on Blue Sky, the latest social media startup as well. You can always find past episodes of the Big Cast if you go out again to big-fintech.com, check the media tab, and you can find this episode you found this episode already one way or another, but you'll find past episodes. You can also find this and past episodes on Spotify, Apple Music, etc. And if you're interested, you can certainly set yourself a reminder. We do put out new content every week, and you'll hear about it first if you put a like out there. and you'll know when we've got new content out. I won't bother getting into the details, but we've already got next week's episode in the works. Hope you'll check in again at that point, and until then, thanks for listening.
Check back each week for the latest from the Big Cast. Or better yet, we hope you'll consider subscribing for free via Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Tweet us at Big FinTech, email info@big-fintech.com, or visit us at big-fintech.com and click on the Media tab, where you can post a comment or check out our archive of hundreds of past episodes. See you next week.